having trouble hearing at home.
I also cannot hear Chair Morton.
One second. Try now.
Testing, testing. Can you hear us at home?
Check.
I can hear
Yes.
you.
You can hear me now?
I
Yes.
can hear you now.
Good evening and welcome to our board meeting of Monday, May the 16th. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Tomorrow is the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. The Durham District School Board recognizes the historical and ongoing oppression that 2SLGBTQI peoples face across our greater society, including education systems, and commits to moving forward with the intention to acknowledge past traumas and build a system that celebrates, supports, respects, values, and embraces Two-Spirit and LGBTQIA peoples. Tomorrow, there will be many flag raisings taking place at schools across the district where students, staff, and community partners will come together in allyship and support. The Education Center flag raising will be streamed live to the Durham District School Board's social media channels. We hope you can join us virtually for this important event, and we will all be wearing our very special pins that have just been presented to us. Thank you. This past weekend, we woke up to the news of a tragic racist hate crime not very far from us, impacting our neighbors in Buffalo, New York. The Durham District School Board stands with our neighbors and friends south of the border, and we offer our sincere condolences to everyone affected by this tragedy. We condemn any act of anti-Black racism and all forms of hate. Let us honor the memory of the victims and those impacted with a moment of silence. Thank you. I would like to inform everyone that we have received a letter of resignation from Trustee Linda Stone, and that the board will be considering the acceptance of that resignation during our meeting tonight. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and our schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, we learn, and we live. I would now ask our students to lead us in the singing, the playing of O Canada.
true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras c'est pour les pays,
Il sait porter la croix
dans l'histoire nature.
Épopée,
des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land.
Loyal saints free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for
Thank you to our students for their leadership. We have an agenda in front of us. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none. We have a draft agenda before us. I would like to amend that draft agenda so that information item E, the report from the Governance and Policy Committee, would become information item B, so that Trustee Nikki Lundquist could address both A and B at the beginning of the information items. Could I have a motion to approve that amended agenda? Thank you, Trustee Templeton, seconded by Trustee Forbes. All those in favor? Thank you. Moving on, we have 3 sets of minutes in front of us. I would like one motion to receive the approved minutes of March 10th, the approved minutes of March 21st, and motion to approve the draft minutes of April 19th. Could I have one motion, please, to approve and receive? Thank you, Trustee Forbes, seconded by Trustee Thatcher. All those in favor? Thank you. Before we move on to number 8 in our agenda, I have some news that I would like to share with you this evening. Director Marsh will be retiring from the Durham District School Board at the end of this calendar year. On behalf of the students, the staff, the Board of Trustees, and our entire Durham District School Board community, I would like to express our thanks and our appreciation to Director Marsh for her tireless advocacy, her dedicated leadership, and her strong commitment. These last few years have been challenging for all, and Nora's empathetic leadership and her ability to provide stability during these trying times will leave a positive impact on the work of the Durham District School Board for years to come. Director Marsh, thank you. Merci. Megwitch. I would like to turn it over to you to provide us with your director's update, please.
Thank you, Chair Morton, for those very kind words. It's definitely been an emotional day. I would like to begin by expressing my gratitude to the entire Durham community who did such a wonderful job welcoming me in, and what an honor it's been to be part of the work of implementing the trustees' strategic plan of Ignite Learning. It is indeed both an honor and humbling to have seen the brilliance of staff within this district and how they have shone the light so brightly and creatively on students to achieve equity of experiences, opportunities, and outcomes for students across the district. Recognize we still have much work to do, and look forward to the next 7 months where we will continue to persist in a relentless manner supporting student equity and equity of opportunity. And I thank everybody for the teamwork that we've achieved. I think that our students are well positioned and served to be successful in terms of 21st century global competencies, which they need to be successful in today's world. And of course, 21st century global competencies are grounded in a solid understanding of Indigenous rights, human rights, and environmental sustainability. And that is the work that we have been doing within the Ontario curriculum, and I'm very proud of it. In terms of, thank you. In terms of my update, I will just add to Chair Morton's announcement in relation to tomorrow being the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. And certainly it is an opportunity for us to consider systemic oppression and overt discrimination encountered by members of the 2S LGBTQI communities. We will be having a flag raising here tomorrow, as in many schools, and we'll be sharing more comments tomorrow in terms of when the flag is raised in relation to the work that we are doing actively to overcome this systemic oppression experienced by those within our community. And I want to actively acknowledge and understand that hurt and trauma is part of their experience within the educational system, and that is what we are coming together to overcome. In terms of ministry memos, since the writ has been issued, there are no forthcoming ministry memos during the election period, so I have nothing to report there. But on a very bright note, I had the pleasure, as did many of the senior team, to listen to student trustee Demario Knowles speak to all directors and superintendents of public education across the province and share his students' perspective of education in Ontario. And so I do want to acknowledge and thank him for his presence at the UPSOA conference. That does conclude my report, Chair Morton, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Marsh, and thank you to our student trustee for that kind of leadership. Questions, comments? Trustee Lundquist, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Chair Morton. I don't have a question. And I know that we will have another opportunity to thank Director Marsh for the work that she has done at the board, but I just didn't want the moment to pass without really acknowledging what a tremendous leader we have had in terms of moving this board forward from a really difficult place. In her short tenure, she has had a tremendous impact on public education in our system, and a much lengthier tenure in other boards and in education generally. But already I have heard from several people who are deeply saddened by the fact that Nora Marsh has made probably a very good decision for herself, but not one that I welcome in many ways, other than for her own benefit, because I see this as a tremendous loss to us. And I really did just want to say thank you for all that you have done for the students and the staff in this board, and in a short time made just an incredible difference.
Thank you, Trustee Lundquist. I share your sentiments. Further comments or questions? Student trustee, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. First and foremost, I want to thank Director Marsh for all of her hard work. She has been a very inspirational and very inspiring leader, and I think I speak for both of my co-trustees when I say that she's been an amazing friend, an amazing person, and we all look up to you very greatly. So thank you for all the hard work that you do. And secondly, I would like to say thank you to all the senior team for the support that you've given me during not only my appearance at the OPSOA panel conference, but just all the support in general throughout the school year. I wouldn't be where I am without you, and thank you to my co-trustees as well. It's been an amazing adventure, and I just want to express my gratitude for it, because I feel like I wouldn't be where I am without everyone here. And it's very important that I recognize that I haven't done what I've done on my own. I've had a whole room full of people that have supported me, so I just want to express my gratitude and thank everyone who has supported me throughout my journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Demario. I don't know if you could see, but Trustee Lundquist was sitting there clapping for you. So thank you. Very well spoken. I see no further questions, so we will move on to the public question period. I would like to invite Dylan to ask the first question this evening. Dylan, are you there?
You know my question. Hey everybody! I just want to say we are welcome to tonight's public question period for the dates of May 16th through June 19th, 2022. And my question tonight is about exams at the secondary level. Since the start of the pandemic, exams haven't really been happening at the secondary level during towards the spring of 2020, 2021, and 2022. I'm wondering, are exams planning to return at secondary for the 22-23 school year? And that's all my questions I have for now.
Thank you, Dylan. And I'm thinking that Associate Director Markovsky is going to answer your question, Dylan.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Morton. Dylan, thank you for the question, and you're absolutely right. Over the last 3 years, when the pandemic started back in March of 2020 to now, we have had our courses in secondary have been predominantly focused on coursework with the exemption of exams as a result of us trying to respond to the unique needs of the pandemic and ensuring that we were placing the needs of our students at the front in terms of a decision making. I can share with you that we are currently looking at a draft exam schedule for the 2022-2023 school year. So to answer your question, we are going to be returning to a schedule in secondary that will include exams. And I would anticipate in the upcoming weeks you will have more information that will be shared with you through your school. Stay tuned for that.
I do have a supplemental as well.
We would like to hear your supplemental, Dylan.
Yes, and normally when we have exams at secondary, small class placements tend to get a week off because of that. I'm wondering, is that coming back next year as well, or is that entirely changed for next year?
Sorry, Dylan, I missed the last part. Can you repeat the question for me if you don't mind?
Probably, yeah, there may have been background noise then. So has that potentially changed, or is it going to be, or is that week off going to remain in place?
Director Marsh, if you want to help me with that, I just didn't hear the question clearly.
For sure. So I think it's Superintendent McCauley can respond in terms of small class placements and what the plan will be for them during an exam period when we return to the ministry policy of exams at secondary.
Sorry, my apologies. Go ahead.
Thank you and good evening, Dylan. So the students that are in our self-contained special education classes, if involved in integration, would follow the exam period. But if in a fully self-contained program such as your peers in the developmental program or the transition to work program, those are instructional days for the classes.
Yes, and I do want to say before I leave, I want to acknowledge that last Friday, May 13th, was my 19th birthday. And I do want to I also want to say thank you to Director Marsh for acknowledging your retirement. And I think you did very well over the past year while we've been asking these questions. And as a longtime student at the board since 2008, and a student at primary secondary school, we would miss you a lot, and we wish you well.
Thank you, Dylan.
And I want to say thank, and I also want to say it was my 19th birthday.
Happy birthday, Dylan.
Thank you, Trustee Lundquist.
Belated happy birthday greetings, Dylan, and thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for those answers as well. The remainder of the questions that we have coming forward will be asked and read out, and I would like Executive Lead Sir Janik to read those remaining questions, and we will ask staff to respond.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Morton. The first question is, could the board share information on the trustee code of conduct as it relates to social media usage and confirm its procedure for handling any breach of the code by its members? And General Counsel Cotter will be providing more information on that.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Morton. So the code of conduct, lays out a number of obligations on trustees in terms of their code, some of which may be engaged in social media usage. In terms of a complaint process, there are really two avenues by which a complaint may come to the board. A member of the Board of Trustees may allege breach of code by a fellow member, in which case the board can either investigate it itself or refer it to the Integrity Commissioner. A member of the public may also file a complaint directly with the Integrity Commissioner, either a formal or an informal complaint, in which case the matter is may be resolved informally, or a formal complaint may lead to an investigation. When a matter is subject to a formal complaint and there is a finding of breach, the Integrity Commissioner delivers a report to the Board of Trustees that makes a decision on the breach and on sanction. The sanctions that are available to the Board of Trustees are set out in the Education Act, Section 218.3 of the Education Act, and they're limited to censure or requiring the trustee to be absent from committee meetings. Under the Education Act, the Board of Trustees does not have the authority to remove a trustee from participation in as an elected official, as an elected trustee, to attend board meetings. Subject to any questions that may raise, that I think that answers that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Cotter. The second question from members of the public are, what options are there for all gender washrooms? And we'll be turning this over to Associate Director Wright to respond.
Thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. Through you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the question. Gender-neutral washrooms have been an important consideration in school construction and renovations for quite a number of years. And most, if not all, of DDSB schools do have gender-neutral washrooms. They are generally single-stall washroom facilities available to all students. As design continues to evolve and as an extension of gender-neutral washrooms, the board is working to leverage inclusive design in new construction projects to ensure that as much as we are able to, barriers are removed and our schools offer safe, accessible facilities that support all students. Thanks.
Thank you, Associate Director Wright. The third question of this evening, there's a two-part to it. I'll read out both at the same time. What were the reasons why the DELF was canceled? And secondly, can testing be arranged for another date through either the DDSB or Durham Catholic, possibly during the summer?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Chair Morton. So we want our parents to know that it was indeed a difficult decision that we had to make to cancel the DELF for this year. We understand that the work that students put into preparing for the DELF in both our French immersion programs and in our core French program. So what happened this year was we had about 437 students who registered for the DELF, which was a 30% increase from our 2019 year, and we had the same 2-week window in which to assess all the students. There were very stringent requirements to mark the DELF, and the oral exam must be marked twice and require a ratio of 2 teachers to 1 student. 59 of our DELF qualified teachers indicated their availability to correct the written portion and conduct and mark the oral exams. They all took part in the training, the mandatory training that was required by the French government prior to March break. We knew that things would be tight. That was before March break. with the increase in number, but we were optimistic. After the March break, a number of unanticipated factors impacted our planning, including the uptick in COVID cases, increased teacher absences due to COVID, increased teacher supply shortage, and a reduction in the number of days that our qualified staff were available to participate as examiners and correctors of the DELF. Combined together, these factors raised concerns about our ability to meet the stringent requirements of the DELF test. Multiple staff would have to work up to 10 days to ensure that we met the deadline, that we would meet the deadline, which would affect our schools and students in a number of ways, including the loss of instructional time in classrooms where the teacher is absent for multiple days, ongoing unfilled absences based on the current fill rates. Our teachers come from both panels, elementary and secondary. Increased pressures on the schools and on the principal in schools to staff their classrooms during the 2-week period of the DELF. Concerns from parents, especially in the elementary program, so we had to consider all these factors. We recognize that it really is disappointing for our students, and we are looking at other ways to assess the DELF, certainly moving forward for next year. The second part of the question about accessing the DELF through DCSB or through us in the summer, we're unable to offer alternative dates. For this test, as DELF is only offered at specific times during the year as determined by the French Ministry of Education. There are strict regulations around the exam, and they can only be offered through an accredited center at exactly the same time across the country. So the written exam is written at the same time across the country in all of the DELF centers. DDSB is affiliated with the Ontario DELF Center, and all exams are coordinated through this center within the strict timelines provided. The next approved timeline for the DELF test is November of 2022, so we have no control over the dates of the DELF, but what we recognize it really is disappointing for our students. So one thing that we are doing, we've contacted all the DELF centers across the country, from Newfoundland right to BC, because we know that a lot of our students will be going to university and colleges in the fall. And so we've contacted all these centers. We've got the links. We will be providing parents with this information. And so if students want to access the DELF in the city in which they will be studying, they will have the center, the dates, and the link and the contact information of the person to connect with. We're also going to be providing tutoring in the summer. We've hired a DELF-trained certified teacher that will connect with the students if they wish to in the summertime, so they can keep their skills going, so they can certainly practice and continue speaking French so that they don't lose it. We know that when you don't practice so much, you tend to lose your skills, so we have that in the works as well. And we will also, in the fall, if the teacher's willing, to continue to have her until the fall dates of the DELF are passed and the students have been able to register in the different cities for DELF, close to the universities that they will be attending. So these are just some of the things. We recognize it's been truly a hardship for our students. We know that a lot of them have worked for many years for this attainment, so we have put these plans in place to ensure that our kids still do have the opportunity to access the DELF should they wish to do that in the towns or cities they will be going in the fall to attend university or college.
Thank you, Superintendent Lazarus. And last but not least, through you, Chair Morton, the last question. This Wednesday is Tamil Genocide Remembrance Day. What type of programming is happening throughout Durham schools to educate students about the Tamil Genocide and the ongoing trauma faced by the Tamil community, who are still demanding answers, accountability, and justice for loved ones killed in 2009? I'll be turning that over to Superintendent Hamid to respond.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Morton. As a board, we recognize this day as part of our days of significance. For all days of significance, including this one, staff are able to access materials and background. All curriculum resources are aligned with the expectations of the Ontario curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. Thank you for the responses. And thank you to Executive Lead Sir Janik for orchestrating that. We will now move on to item number 10 in our agenda, And we have a presentation from Ignite Durham Learning Foundation, and I would go to Executive Director of Ignite Learning, and that is Stacy Lapin Fisher. Stacy?
Stacy, you may be on mute.
Thank you so much, and my apologies. We will start over. So thank you again so much, and through you, Chair Morton. It is an absolute pleasure to be with you here this evening to provide an update on the Ignite Durham Learning Foundation. Our report can be found on page 25 of your package this evening. As mentioned, my name is Stacy Lapin Fisher, and I have the privilege of serving as the Executive Director for the Ignite Durham Learning Foundation. Joining me this evening is Neil Joshi, the Chair of the Board for the Foundation, who volunteers his time to work alongside a dynamic and diverse Board of Directors who together uphold our mission statement that reads, "The Ignite Durham Learning Foundation is a charitable community organization that serves to remove financial barriers to create equitable opportunities that empower Durham District School Board students to achieve academic and personal success." Our vision statement is tomorrow's made brighter. Today is already bright, but we believe that all students deserve a brighter tomorrow and a broad range of opportunities to shine. Last week, we held our 4th annual meeting and celebrated our 1-year anniversary of becoming an official registered charity under the Canada Revenue and Tax Agency. Thank you to those of us this evening that played an instrumental role on our board of directors in our early days. Trustee Barrett, Trustee Brainy, and Associate Director Markovsky. Thank you. In your package, we've provided you with a copy of your 2021 impact report that was released last week at our annual meeting. For those attending virtually, you can access a copy on our website at idlf.ca. This report highlights and celebrates the impact that the foundation has had in our short time as a charitable foundation in 2021. When we say impact, to us at IDLF, it is the stories we hear. This statement was shared with us by a DDSB principal. Through the generous support of the Ignite Durham Learning Foundation, we were able to assist 2 families who are new to the school and new to Canada. After having left Afghanistan with very little, we were able to provide these families with resources to buy clothing, footwear, outerwear, and personal care items. The generosity of the Ignite Durham Learning Foundation will not soon be forgotten by the families or those of us at this school. I'm now going to pass it over to Neil to share information on our funding process and much more.
Thank you, Stacy. We know you don't need us to tell you the phenomenal job DDSB educators and leaders do each and every day. DDSB staff build authentic relationships with students and families, and together we ensure students have the resources they need to allow for them to focus on their learning and the joy of childhood and adolescence. In the fall of 2021, we created an application process for school leaders to apply for funding. The process for applying is quite simple and does not ask for any student or family information. Maintaining confidentiality was top of mind when the board started discussions about how to disperse funding. School leaders are able to enter the DDSB Spark portal to access the application form along with our funds policies and procedures. The support we provide falls under 4 diverse funding pillars. The Starfish Fund provides resources to assist schools in addressing student needs, including, but not limited to, clothing, school supplies, food, health and transportation. To date, we have funded students for items such as glasses, winter clothing, footwear, hearing aids, grocery gift cards, alarm clocks, bus passes, and Presto cards. We have dispersed $31,000 to 124 students. The Make a Difference Fund offers financial subsidies to students experiencing poverty so that they may participate with their peers in field trips, extracurricular activities, and school events. To date, we have funded school team fees, basketball equipment, field trip fees, and end-of-year celebrations. We have dispersed $4,190 to 17 students. The Think Outside the Bell Fund provides financial support to students in need who would significantly benefit from participating in specialized programs such as preschool success and after-school recreation and arts programs. To date, we have provided $590 to 3 students. With in-person programming just starting to open back up and summer camps just around the corner, we anticipate that this fund will blossom in the coming months. The final funding pillar we have is the Future Fund. This provides students with financial support to assist with post-secondary pathways. Again, an untapped pillar at this time. However, we plan to develop communication pieces out to DDSB secondary school guidance departments and administrators to make them aware of this support. The IDLF Board of Directors recognize that there are many funders that provide scholarships and bursaries, but very few that cover the cost for students to apply for admission to post-secondary, which can range from $250 to $1,600, depending on where students are applying and how many they are applying to. Back to Stacey.
Thank you. We have held several inaugural fundraising events over the past 8 months and are so pleased with the support from our Durham community. The Full Belly, Full Backpack, Full Potential Giving Tuesday campaign raised $11,281 thanks to a very generous matching gift made by Fieldgate Developments. The Teacher Give the Gift campaign, which was a short video of a DDSB teacher receiving a gift of a donation of support from a child in her classroom, raised $1,730. Our incredible facility services team have huge philanthropic hearts, and thanks to their annual holiday raffle held at the Education Center, we received $5,785. To close off the 2021 year, we launched the Ignite Hope Holiday Gift Guide, which provided an opportunity to purchase a gift of a backpack full of supplies for a child, or a week of nutritious lunches for a child, and so much more. This campaign raised $5,866. We had a few crowdfunding events that took place on social media, where individuals asked that donations be made to the Ignite Durham Learning Foundation in lieu of a birthday gift. Total raised for those were $985. And most recently, we held a very successful virtual silent auction that had some incredible items, all donated by DDSB staff, a DDSB trustee, local businesses, and our IDLF Board of Directors. The auction raised just over $21,000. We've been very fortunate to receive grant funding, $5,000 from the Whitby Maris Fund to purchase winter outerwear for DDSB students, $5,000 from the City of Oshawa to purchase clothing and outerwear for students, $5,100 to partially cover the cost of employing a youth who is enrolled in a post-secondary education program, and most recently, $30,000 from Second Harvest to support food insecurity. So much of what we do at IDLF relies on strong relationships and connected partners that share similar values and corporate social responsibility. To date, we've been supported by wonderful partners such as Giant Tiger in Whitby, the Whitby Great Canadian Superstore, First Book Canada, the Ajax Amazon Warehouse, Whitby Caremongers, Fieldgate Development, the DDSB Make a Difference Depot, and Schoolhouse Playcare, a DDSB Early Years partner, is the very first organization to declare us their charity of choice. And of course, we need to acknowledge and thank our individual donors as well, who have donated more than $10,000.
Our work has just started. We still consider ourselves to be in our infancy as a newly formed charitable organization. Looking forward, we plan on being present and active at local fairs and festivals this spring and summer. We plan on engaging DDSB students in school communities with the option to participate in a district-wide philanthropic event we will approve and launch in our 2022 to 2024 strategic plan at our upcoming board meeting. And we are inviting DDSB staff and trustees to participate in the staff payroll deduction campaign that was just released. A simple and easy way to support students by having a small donation taken directly off each paycheck. We hope that the senior team and the trustees will consider leading the way by making a gift. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share our updates with you. That concludes our presentation this evening. Through you, Chair Morton, Stacy, and I would be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Neil, for your leadership, for your presentation. And we will now ask if there are comments or questions for Stacy and Neil. And we will turn to Trustee Forbes.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation and all the work that you've done, you know, in the past year, and the, you know, just the amazing impact that you're having on our students' lives. And I just really want to say a heartfelt thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you, Darlene. Trustee Lundquist, I see your hand is up.
It is. Thank you, Chair Morton. So I just wanted to make two observations. So the first one is that I think this is a remarkable thing that is happening. And I think it's particularly remarkable because it's very hard to build in an area, in a time of economic insecurity. And yet it's happening. It's slow, you know, it's not as fast as we might like, but it's growing and it's building, and I'm impressed by that because it cannot be easy right now. It is a challenging economic environment for so many. So I appreciate that. As the founder of Caremongers Whitby, so I did get a shout out a little bit for donating to an option, but I did want to say that several trustees on this board have been instrumental in Caremongers Whitby, including trustees Templeton and Thatcher. And we made a not an insignificant donation to the charity, and we're very proud of that. But I also recognize that, you know, some of us are in a good position to give. And so I will take up your challenge and I will donate $1,000 to whatever you tell me which one needs it the most. And I would be happy to do that. And I'm not asking other trustees to step forward. I'm not trying to put anybody in the spot, but I just want to encourage people who can give to do so. And I'm happy to do that. I am so impressed by the work that you all do. Thank you for it.
Thank you very much. That's very nice. We appreciate your donation very, very much, and grateful for any funds we receive to redistribute to the children. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will now go to student trustee Kayla Malcolm. You have a question. Kayla?
Hi, through you, Madam Chair. I don't have a question, but thank you so much for your presentation. I wanted to give forward my thanks. I think that there's a lot of students within the system who could truly benefit from this and could truly benefit from the funding. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for everything that you guys have put together and everything that you guys are doing moving forward.
Thank you, Kayla. Moving on to another student trustee. Demario, you have a question or you have a comment?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Just like Trustee Forbes and Student Trustee Malcolm did, I would also like to give a huge thank you to everyone who is involved in this organization. I am all for making a positive impact. I say it every day on my social media pages, and I feel like that this is an amazing way where you can impact a lot of people. I know that not everyone has the most optimal situation in comparison to their peers, and I feel like this is a really good way to make a statement and say that, you know, we care about the people, we see that they're struggling, and we're here to help, we're here to do whatever we can to make lives better for people that are in need. And I just wanted to give a huge thank you to everyone involved in this organization, because this can make a lot of positive change, and I'm all here for positive change. So if there's anything I can do, then feel free to reach out. I'd love to make any donations that I can, and I'd love to support in any way possible. But yeah, that's all I had to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Demario. And the only thing I'll throw out there, since you're so active on social media, is feel free to promote us if you could. because you never know who could redistribute funds back to the foundation, and in turn we would redistribute to the students. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Thank you, DeMario, for those comments. Obviously, Stacy and Neil, we are all very grateful for the work that you are doing for our communities. Thank you for joining us this evening and for your presentation. Moving on, we will have a report from Trustee Thatcher, and this report will be from the Committee of the Whole in camera. Trustee Thatcher.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Morton. The board approved the actions of the Committee of the Whole in camera and adopted the motions made at the Committee of the Whole in camera meeting as follows. The disclosure of intimate, personal, or financial information in respect of a member of the board or committee, an employee or prospective employee of the board, or a pupil or his or her parent or guardian. The acquisition or disposal of a school site, and under the heading of litigation, administrative transfers and placement. Chair Morton, this is my report.
Thank you for that report. Would you like to move the receipt of that report?
I will move the receipt of that report.
Thank you kindly. Moving on to good news from the system, and we always look forward to your good news, Director Marsh.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Morton. Happy to turn it over to our student narrators for this month.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of DDSB students and staff, we are happy to bring you good news from across the system. We recently celebrated Education Week, which took place from May 2nd to 6th. The week recognized our collective efforts to support student achievement, success, and well-being. We would like to take this time to thank all DDSB staff for their continued dedication and commitment to ensuring that not only DDSB's 74,000 students feel supported, but their fellow staff also experience a sense of belonging and professional connections. Education Week helps us recognize the challenges faced and obstacles that we have overcome with the help of union and federation partners at CUPE, EDFO, OPC, and OSSTF.
Each year, DDSB students show their willingness and ability to support members of our community by helping to find a cure for cancer. This year, schools across the district organized and engaged their communities by raising $241,482 for the Terry Fox Foundation. Congratulations to our students and schools for keeping Terry Fox's dream alive of finding a cure for cancer.
On April 27th, staff and students recognized the invaluable administrative staff across the district and in our schools. Administrative staff provide real benefits to students, their colleagues, community, and the board at large. Thank you to all our secretaries and administrative professionals across the DDSB.
Children's Mental Health Week is about increasing awareness of child and youth mental health and decreasing stigma, while also spreading the word that help is available and it works. Staff spoke with students about the importance of being healthy, not just in their bodies, but in their minds as well. Many events, both in person and virtually, took place in support of children's mental health across the DDSB.
Earth Day is a day of action to change human behavior and to preserve our Earth. Students and staff did just that. There was no shortage of activities in support of Earth Day across schools. Students took part in picking up trash, growing plants from seedlings, walking or biking to school, and learning of ways in which we can protect our Earth.
Ethan Drinkwalter, a DDSB at-home secondary student, received an honorable mention recognition for his creative talents. Ethan submitted 2 logos to the Ontario Schools Cricket Association Logo Design Contest, and one of his submissions was described as being among the best in Ontario, according to the association's board of directors. Ethan says he was inspired to create a logo that included kids and a maple leaf to visually represent what the Cricket Association is all about. Congratulations, Ethan.
DDSB students are using the outdoors to advance their learning. With spring weather in the air, many schools have taken advantage of sunny days to engage in learning outside. Students took field trips to Non-Quan Outdoor Education Center to learn about building fires and shelters. Others sat outside at school and read a good book, or took their usual in-class lesson to the outdoor classroom.
Over 500 attendees listened to Dr. John Duffy as he spoke about parenting the new teen in the age of anxiety. Dr. Duffy offered real-life examples that were easily identifiable to the audience. Practical suggestions encouraged parents to create a positive atmosphere in the home to ensure a space where children can express themselves. To make the presentation more accessible, it was translated by American Sign Language interpreters.
Each year, Skills Ontario hosts a skills competition and career exploration showcase for students at the elementary level all the way to the post-secondary. In teams or independently, students from across the district competed in various skilled trades. This year, we had 39 competitors at the secondary level. Of those 39, 7 won medals. Gold medal winners will go on to compete at Nationals on May 26th and 27th. Congratulations to all those that participated.
The DDSB has received approval for construction on 2 new schools to open September 2026. These schools will serve North Oshawa secondary students and elementary students who live in the Pickering-Seton community. The new schools will reduce enrollment pressure on schools in the surrounding communities. We look forward to starting construction and welcoming students.
The dates of significance, as you can see, take us up to the end of June.
Thank you to Tiara and Eleni from Pine Ridge Secondary School for reading this month's good news.
Thank you, and Chair Morton, I really appreciated the students doing the narration this month. I also wanted to add that in addition to Administrative Assistants Day, where we acknowledge the important work that they do, May also saw Administrator Day of Principals and Vice Principals on May 1st, and so we were very happy to also acknowledge those individuals in our system who do that important work. So just wanted to add that to the good news from May. Thank you.
Thank you to Director Marsh for sharing the good news, and thank you to our students for bringing those amazing stories to us. Moving now into our recommended actions, and we do have 4. The first one, I'm going to go to Vice Chair Christine Thatcher because she has the report from the Standing Committee of May the 2nd. Trustee Thatcher, over to you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Morton. The report can be found on pages 41 to 46 in your package. I move that the board now receive the minutes and approve the actions of the May 2nd, 2022 Standing Committee meeting.
Thank you. Do we have someone who would second that motion? Thank you, Trustee Edwards. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we will vote on that motion. A green check mark or a red X would be greatly appreciated. That motion has passed. Thank you. Moving on to our second recommended action. As mentioned earlier, I'm in receipt of a letter from Trustee Linda Stone resigning from the Board of Trustees. The Education Act states that a resignation is to be accepted with the consent of the majority of members present. I therefore am looking to trustees to put forward a motion to accept that letter of resignation. Could I have that motion, please? I would go to Trustee Lundquist. You're putting forward the motion?
I would be pleased to do so. So I will move that we immediately accept Trustee Stone's resignation and pursuant to the Ed Act and the process established by our bylaws under Section 6.1 and 6.2, that we strike a committee to fill the vacancy.
Thank you, Trustee Lundquist. Could I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Trustee Templeton. Comments or questions?
Madam Chair, is that two motions in one there? Because you might want to do one but not the other.
I'm content to
Can,
split it
can, they,
apart.
can they be split? Yes, thank you.
Could I ask you, Trustee Lundquist, to repeat that motion for us, please?
Sure, I'm happy to repeat it as two motions as well, if that's easier. So the first would be, I move that we immediately accept Trustee Stone's resignation. And then the second motion would be that pursuant to the Ed Act and the process established by our bylaws, section 6.1 and 6.2, that we strike a committee to fill the vacancy.
Thank you, Trustee Lundquist. Do you mind if we treat that as two separate motions?
No, I'm content with that, Chair Morton.
Thank you. The first motion then was to accept the letter of resignation. Motion came from Trustee Lundquist, seconded by Trustee Templeton. Comments or questions? Seeing none, then I would like to call the vote. And in order to do that, I'm asking for the green check mark or the red X. That motion has passed. I'm going to go back to Trustee Lundquist because you mentioned a second motion, and we would need that to establish a vacancy committee. Back to you, Trustee Lundquist.
Sure. I move that we establish, oh, sorry, that's not what I'm moving. I'm so sorry. I move that pursuant to the Ed Act and the process established by our own bylaws, section 6.1 and 6.2, that we strike a committee to fill the vacancy created by the resignation of Trustee Stone.
And I think Trustee Thatcher, you are seconding that motion? Yeah. Thank you. The motion has been put forward by Trustee Lundquist, seconded by Trustee Thatcher. Are there comments or are there questions? Seeing none, then I would ask everyone to vote again. And that motion has also passed. Thank you. Moving on to the next recommended action, and that is the draft human rights, anti-discrimination, and anti-racism policy. Trustee Michael Barrett, who is the chair of the Governance and Policy Committee, is not here this evening, but Nikki Lundquist is the vice chair of that committee, so we are going to go to Trustee Lundquist to speak to this matter. Trustee Lundquist.
Thank you, Chair Morton. As Vice Chair of the Governance and Policy Committee, and in the absence of the Chair, it is actually my distinct pleasure to introduce this matter. The draft Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Policy is located at pages 47 to 135 of the agenda package. This policy, as you know, has been subject to many revisions after extensive consultation and review, including on October 25th and 29th of 2021, January 21 and 28, March 3 and 24, and it is now before the board for consideration and potential approval. Recent events have demonstrated the need for such a policy. I believe the policy and procedure found in the appendices will support the students and staff in the system, and that it is our collective responsibility to recognize the inherent dignity and worth of every single member of our school community. This policy incorporates comments and feedback and appropriately recognizes the legal framework and credible scholarly research in the fields of human rights and education. Accordingly, I move that the board consider and adopt the draft human rights policy.
Thank you, Trustee Lundquist. Could we have a member second that motion? Trustee Templeton, your hand is up to second the motion. Thank you. Comments or questions? Trustee Edwards.
Thank you, and I'm fully support of this policy, but I did get an influx of some questions, and there seems to still be a misunderstanding around the difference between consent by a health professional and those of maybe a school trip. And I believe it was Superintendent Macaulay that had addressed this before and gave a really thorough answer, but it's just to clarify again for our community and our parents about what the differences are. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Edwards, for that clarification. I see that Superintendent Macaulay is going to respond. Superintendent Macaulay?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The language in the draft policy and procedure reflects our current practice, which is grounded in the legislation provincially, in the provision of healthcare, as many of our team members are regulated healthcare professionals. And that aligns with the legislation both for their practice as well as the college requirements of their individual professions.
Supplemental, of course.
Supplemental, just a comment. And again, as you said, is that, you know, the current Ontario Human Rights Code recognizes that children have rights, and that in Ontario there's really no stipulated age of consent for treatment. The Health Care Consent Act actually stipulates that all persons, including minors, are presumed to be capable of making treatment decisions. And so, for example, the child is able to understand the treatment and reasonably foresee the consequences, then they can give consent. It is not, they don't, the health professional doesn't have to seek out parental consent. I mean, it is understandable that they would like to have both consents for a minor, but it is not required. And so this is under, as I said, existing, as you said, existing provincial legislation. So nothing in this human rights policy contradict anything that is currently exists under the Human Rights Code or under the basically Health Care Consent Act. And so I just wanted that clarification, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Edwards. Thank you, Superintendent Macaulay. We have a hand up from Trustee Lundquist. Trustee Lundquist?
I would cede the floor to Trustee Crawford, whose hand is up, and it was up before me, and I have spoken already.
Thank you. Trustee Crawford?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have concerns with this that I have raised in committee, and I've received many messages from people that also have concerns about it and wish that they had more time to address those concerns. This is, to me, far too large a document. It probably should have been broken down into 2 or 3 policies that we could have voted on individually, because there's some awfully good work in here. But it could be that in the future it'll work itself out and the weaknesses will be shown. My suggestion would be that this should go back to committee for more work and for more public input on the questions that have been raised. I know if I put that forward, it won't get a second and it won't be passed. So I'll just express myself by not voting for this policy tonight.
Crawford? We will go back to Trustee Lundquist. Your motion is on the floor. Would you like to speak to that motion again, Trustee Lundquist?
Yeah, I just want to make reference to 2 things. So I would like to just follow up on something on the comments of Trustee Edwards, because I think they're important. And I want to be clear about something. We are not medical providers. educators are not medical providers. We're not recommending courses of treatment. We're not providing treatment. We're not giving treatment. None of that is what this is about in any way, shape, or form. So nothing has changed in this regard. And so there's a bit of a false understanding of what this policy may or may not do. And I think we should be very clear with the public. With respect to Trustee Crawford's comments, because I do not want the public thinking that this hasn't gone to the public for consultation. For those who haven't tuned in before today, we're all inundated with some emails today that were coming not from our region, but from all across the province, with people who actually aren't impacted by this policy. And I am very specifically saying the concerns raised in many of them are offensive to human rights, they're antithetical to human rights, and I reject them wholeheartedly. I think this policy, will require some revision in the future, but it is a good starting point. It's actually a better than good starting point. It's an excellent starting point for recognizing the inherent value and dignity of every child and every staff member in the school board. It is long overdue. We have waited far too long, in my view, in this term to pass it. I am delighted to have it be before us today. And I am hopeful that the trustees support this, because it is exactly the kind of thing that is required to address in a meaningful way the systemic discrimination that people are denying exists, but that is well supported in the literature, well supported in case law, and is a fact and reality of life for people who are from equity deserving groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lundquist. We have a motion on the floor. It has been seconded. I'm looking at the recommendation on page 48 in our agenda. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees consider, and as it may deem appropriate, approve the draft human rights policy. I'm calling the vote on that. Please indicate with your green check mark or your red X how you would be voting. That motion has passed. Thank you. Moving on, I'm going to go back to Trustee Lundquist, because we are going to now talk about the revised safe and respectful workplace and harassment prevention policy. Trustee Lundquist, you're on.
Thank you, Chair Morton. This is a motion that is being presented, coming forward from the Governance Committee. The safe and respectful workplace and harassment prevention policy has gone out for consultation and also many revisions. And those revisions are reflected in this version and the previous version of this policy. And at this time, I would like to move that the revised safe and respectful workplace and harassment policy be approved by this board.
Thank you, Trustee Lundquist. Trustee Forbes, are you seconding that motion? Thank you. Comments or questions? I see no comments, I see no questions, so I am looking at page 136, and the recommendation reads like this: that the Board of Trustees consider, as it may deem appropriate, approve the revised safe and respectful workplace and harassment prevention policy. I will call that vote. Please indicate if you support or if you do not support that motion. That motion has also passed. Thank you. Moving on to the information items.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Chair Morton. I have just a sort of point of privilege, if I may.
Certainly.
I should have said it earlier on, and I apologize for this, but I really did want to say thank you to Human Rights Advisor Mathur, who has put in tremendous number, and also to Councillor Cotter, both who have put in tremendous numbers of hours to ensure that this policy reflects important principles, but also reflects the standards created by law, which I will observe are minimum standards. So there's nothing wrong with exceeding those standards. This is months and months and months of work, and I don't want to move along without acknowledging it in a really truly and sincere, true and sincere way. So my thanks to them as the vice chair of the committee, but also as somebody who cares deeply about this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lundquist. We are all very grateful for the immense amount of work that has gone into this. Thank you kindly. Back to you, Trustee Lundquist. We are looking for a notice of motion for our revised emergency closing of schools policy. Trustee Lundquist?
We are, and I have it somewhere in this pile of papers, and I apologize because I'm going to need a moment to locate it. I've located it. It didn't take nearly as long as I anticipated it might. So I would refer you to the revised emergency closing school policy report that begins at page 157 of the agenda. The recommendation is listed at 4.0, and accordingly I move that the Board of Trustees receive the notice of motion for the revised emergency closing of schools policy and move it to the June 20th, 2022 board meeting for consideration.
Thank you, Trustee Lundquist. We will be dealing with this on June the 20th, 2022. Thank you for bringing forth that notice of motion, Trustee Lundquist. And again, we will look to Trustee Lundquist for the Governance and Policy Committee report of March the 24th. Trustee Lundquist.
I'm trying, Chair Morton. This got sprung on me today, as you know, so it's taking me a few minutes to find everything. So the minutes of the Governance and Policy Committee meeting will be found at page 202 of the agenda package, and I ask that those minutes be received.
Thank you for that report, Trustee Lundquist. And I think that perhaps you've shared enough information. You may take a little rest now. Moving on to the circulation or recirculation of surplus property, former Cartwright High School and the former H.W. Knight in Cannington. So we will go to Associate Director David Wright for this report. Associate Director Wright.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. The report can be found on page 163 of your package. Regulation 44498 details the process for school boards to dispose of surplus properties. Both H.W. Knight Public School and Cartwright High School have been closed for quite a number of years and have been declared surplus to board needs. Both of these properties have been previously circulated under 44498, but enough time has passed without selling the properties that we are required now to recirculate again. On May 3rd, 2022, the properties were circulated to the entities included in section 3.3 of your report. These entities have 90 days to express interest and an additional 90 days to make an offer at fair market value. If there is no deal within that time frame, the property may be circulated to the open market. We are hopeful that we will be successful in selling these properties throughout this process. That is my report, Madam Chair. Happy to answer any questions through you. Thank you.
Questions or comments for Associate Director Wright? I'm seeing none, but I do want to say thank you. These properties have not been used for a number of years, and I well remember the closing of Cartwright High School, and that was in 2013. We need to be acting on these properties. Thank you. Moving on to the Integrity Commissioner Annual Report, and we will go to Council Cotter for that. Council Cotter.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Morton. The board's code of conduct requires the Integrity Commissioner to report annually on matters falling outside of his jurisdiction. That report has been included in the package. I can also advise the Board of Trustees in terms of the fees that have been incurred by our Integrity Commissioner since 2018. I have that breakdown, and I'm happy to provide that information. For the 18-19 fiscal year, the total fees were approximately $30,000. For the 19-20 fiscal year, approximately $36,000. And for the 2021 fiscal year up to the end of 2021, actually, fees were approximately $37,000. $37,000. Subject to any questions you may have, that is my report.
Thank you for that report, Council Cotter. And I see that Trustee Crawford has his hand up. Trustee Crawford, your question or your comment?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the report. I had requested that. It is part of the report, but it does indicate that there's a significant cost using an integrity commissioner to do investigations. And part of my concern with this is it seems to be, or could be, bottomless, because individuals are allowed to make complaints against trustees, staff is allowed to make complaints against trustees, and trustees are allowed to make complaints against trustees, and those complaints could go to the integrity commissioner, which would involve investigations and more costs, even though they come back to the board to be determined. But during that time, the board is not aware of how many cases might be being investigated. So I bring that to the attention of everyone, and I also brought it to the attention of the board because I would not use an IC for the simple reason that that takes taxpayer dollars that are supposed to go to students, and it diverts it to something. It might be a small amount, but because of that, I would not use an IC, and I want that to be known publicly. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Crawford. Trustee Lundquist, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, because I've heard a lot of commentary about having an IC recently, and I haven't spoken to it in a public way, and I really want to. And I want to because I think it's a bit of a red herring, the conversations we're having around this. So if we don't have an IC, what we have potentially are occupational health and safety complaints, human rights complaints, and other actions being taken. And frankly, those things are just as expensive, if not more so. And so I actually see this as a potential cost saving initiative, a value for money kind of proposition. And frankly, I think that it is both responsible and reasonable for a board to want to hold itself to account, to want to have scrutiny on challenging issues, to want to have somebody who is well positioned to be an arbiter of the kinds of issues that clearly board members are struggling with. And so the cost to me in terms of an almost $1 billion budget is so negligible that I just don't actually see this as an issue, as an economic issue. Certainly integrity and ethics are a big issue, and they should be a big issue for every single person at this board table and within the school board itself. But in terms of the expenditure, I don't see it as, unusually high or anything else. In fact, I think that what it has done is actually kept our expenses quite low. As somebody who engages in investigations myself, I'm aware of how expensive a single investigation could be. And having a skilled integrity commissioner to help mediate these kinds of things is actually, in my mind, a really, really wise use of board resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lundquist. Trustee Forbes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to also say that I think transparency, fairness, and an arm's length body to investigate such complaints is incredibly necessary to ensure that we have public faith in our role. So I do agree with all of the sentiments that Trustee Lundquist had mentioned, including the cost we are not wildly overspending on this, and I think that holding publicly elected officials to account in a fulsome way is incredibly important. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're going to go to Director Marsh, who will be making a comment. Director Marsh?
Thank you. I just wanted to echo in terms of the board's decision-making of including an IC in its code of conduct, that it does replicate what we have seen in terms of when there have been challenges of issues of equity and governance and where they intersect, that the Ministry of Education, when they've gone in and done some reports in terms of other boards, have actually mandated the appointment of integrity commissioners. So while it's not part of the Education Act, I think this board has been very prudent in terms of incorporating it in its code of conduct, given the public reports that are out there in relation to boards that have attempted self-management of complex issues.
Thank you, Director Marsh. Trustee Edwards, your hand is up.
Thank you, Director Marsh. That was one of my comments I was going to put forward, is that, as you stated, when the ministry has gone into other boards, that was one of the recommendations. So I fully support the Integrity Commissioner, and again, for some of the other reasons that were stated by other trustees as far as a fair and equitable and a transparent process. I just wanted to make a comment around spending in the classroom. My understanding is that the funds that come that pay for the Integrity Commissioner are out of governance, and that's my understanding. Yes, no, I'm not. If I'm correct.
That is correct. It comes from the admin line.
Okay, so that particular item, governance and administration, as that's the line item comes. Understanding that it is one of the envelopes where if we do underspend it, we can spend into the classroom, but it is there earmarked to deal with governance and administration. And I think that based on some of the other issues from other boards that didn't have an integrity commissioner, and the costs that they had to get out of their situations and deal with those issues has been exorbitant. So I fully agree with having the integrity commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you to all for sharing your insights. Trustee Crawford, your hand is up.
My hand wouldn't have been up if people hadn't decided to go into argument about this, and I don't want to make it a big argument. It's just simply my position is that the Education Act is quite clear as that the money should go to students. And of course, there's going to be money diverted, but I just don't think this is a good way to spend it. Another thing we have to keep in mind, 90% of the school boards do not have an IC commissioner. Plus, our code of conduct itself is built, it's all built in there itself, that we could handle it within ourselves, and that's the way it was meant to be. And as a matter of fact, the one that we just passed here, as far as I know, does not spend money outside the board on investigations to make sure that people are treated properly. Not to mention the way that this code is written, it could be terribly misused against innocent individuals that might just be debating in a public debate.
Point of order, we're not actually talking about the code. We're what's on the table, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, but you opened the door by mentioning the code.
There is a point of order here.
Go ahead.
Trustee Lundquist, your point of order is?
I don't actually recollect mentioning the code, to be frank, and I certainly wasn't speaking in favor of the code. I was speaking in favor of having an IC, which was raised by the report and by Trustee Crawford. So practically speaking, we're not debating the code. We're debating the expenditures of the IC, period. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone. We will be moving on.
May I speak to that, Madam Chair, just to clarify it, and then I'll shut up. There was no motion forward. It's not as though we're debating anything. I commented on the report, and then the other trustees decided they were going to comment on a report. This is not a debate. It's not a point of order, and I have a right to my point of view. And of course, the code of conduct and the IC are connected. They are appended to one another. But thank you, and thank you for the report, and thank you for letting me speak. I do appreciate it.
We will now be moving on, and I would ask Trustee Edwards to provide us with the SEAC report. Trustee Edwards.
The minutes of the SEAC meeting of March 10th can be found on pages 192 to 201, and that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Edwards. Comments or questions? I'm seeing none. We will go to the OPSPA report, and Patrice Barnes is not here. Is there somebody who would like to provide an OPSPA report?
Thank you. And through you, Chair Morton, there is no OPSPA report this evening.
Thank you. I draw your attention to the correspondence which is found in your agenda package. I see no other business, so consider this meeting to be adjourned. Thank you for attending.